Station. What is up, everybody? Welcome to PCP Movie Night here on Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm your host, Rockin, Robbie Bills. Very excited to launch the PCP portion of March Madness 2023. This is the third annual March Madness. That's right. We started this the first year of Dylan's horror show, where I was like, hey, man, let's do a mini horror fest in March, all themed around madness, insanity. Let's just do it, right? Like halfway between Horror Fest, let's just do something small. And it's become one of my favorite times of the year. So tonight, we're kicking off March Madness PCP style with Dario Argento, one of my all-time favorite directors. And this is one of my favorite movies from this director, Tenebre. We're talking about Tenebre from 1982, Italian horror, giallo, if you will. Really good stuff. And to talk about it, we got Jolly Jelani. What is up, my man?
Yeah, dude. That music slaps. It's so clean. Yeah, man. Station. So glad to be here. So glad to talk about this movie. It's been years since I've seen it. And like, now that I've seen it again, oh, giallo. I love you. You're beautiful.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites, man.
For sure. This a lot. It's
every
awesome.
time we got Argento on the show, we also got the Brainiac. What is up, my man? How you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Yeah.
Are you what's going on with the headphones, man? You trying something new out?
I just didn't feel like wearing the AirPods.
All right. I like the look, though. I like it.
Yeah. I was being kind of subdued. I was waiting for the overhard cutoff, but
nah, man, we're not going to do that. It's Argento. We really respect Argento. Argento's heavier than bits. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay. Yeah,
have some respect, brother. Come on, man.
I'm down. I can drop my guard then.
Speaking of respect, we got Verno from Blood Splatter Chatter in the house. What is up, my man?
Well, I had all sorts of bits planned, but you said, we can't do that on Argento night, so I guess I'll just cancel it. What up? What's going on? But by the way, when I hear that, for whatever reason, I hear fire it up, fire it up. I don't know why, but
okay.
I think that's what they're doing.
All right, I appreciate that. Also, we got the bodacious one himself, Brooks the Magnificent. What is up, my man?
Right.
Hey, man, you ready for March Madness? You excited?
I am.
Hell yeah, me too. All right, we also got Jolly Joe Corallo, fresh off the boat from Seattle, because he took that really long way around, and we had to go down around South America and back up, right?
Yeah, they have the Panama Canal, right?
Yeah, but
go through that.
It's more scenic. We'll take the scenic route.
That's true. You get to see those penguins at like the tail end of Chile there.
Yeah, see, there you go. There are penguins in Chile? Hell.
I didn't know that.
Not a lot. It's just all the way at the bottom there.
Just a few. But thank you for being here, Joe. I know you had a long weekend, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's worth it for Argento.
So what's crazy is that I left my notes in the other room, so I don't have my notes. So I'm pretty sure I know what I want to talk about tonight. Overall, I love this damn movie. I've loved this movie since the first time I've seen it. This is like Argento, like ratcheted up, man. Like it's just like cranked as far as it can go, and it's about to break loose. And I think this is the zaniest and the best third act of almost any Argento film. I think this is such an amazing movie. It's got some problems. It takes a lot of leaps of faith, a lot of coincidences just to let certain things happen or whatever. A lot of characters are there just to get killed. They don't move the plot any. I don't care. I'm not into Argento for the story. I'm into Argento for the style, for the colors, the texture, the movement of the camera, the beautiful murder. And I mean the absolute most beautiful murder. And one of my favorites, when Jane gets her arm cut off and just like splashes across the wall. It's in the music at that point. Like, oh my goodness. I love this movie. Now, like I said, it's got some issues. You know, we can split apart certain things about it, but I actually love it beginning, middle, and end. It takes twists, it takes turns, and it maintains a grounded sense of reality, but it really does kind of dive deep into some thematic material. It's got amazing music from now people say Goblin, that's fine, but at the time they couldn't say Goblin because the one dude wasn't with them, and there was like a rights issue with the name. So anyway, Claudio Simonetti was part of the 3 that did the music for this, and that's one of the reasons why it slaps so hard. I love this score. I really love this movie. I think this movie is balls to the wall, awesome. When I first watched it, I never saw anything really coming, and the more I watch it, the more I enjoy. I watched this movie 4 times this week, y'all.
Yeah.
I watched it. I watched it night by night with the commentary. Finished that last night. I watched it initially like Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. Then I watched it again the other night, and I watched it again today while I was working with the Joe Bob Briggs commentary on Shudder. So I have watched this it never gets old. I love it. And it's tight. It's an hour and 40. It's an hour and 40, clean in and out. It's so, I love this movie. It's not as deep as certain things like say Deep Red or Bird with Crystal Plumage or Suspiria. We could dive deeper into those. I'm not trying to apologize for this movie. This movie's awesome. I love it. And Dario Argento directly speaking to some of his criticisms in this film, which I absolutely love that little meta bit because it's kind of a meta movie, right? So like, whatever, we'll get to all of it. Argento based it on an actual event where he got a stalker who threatened to kill him through phone calls. So he's actually putting that into the movie. And in the movie, this dude's work is being interpreted into murder. And so then you got that, but it's such a cool idea. I love this movie. What do you think, Jelani? I'm really excited to talk about Argento movies. So Jelani, what do you think about our Tenebrae overall?
Absolutely, dude. Everything you just said, I love. I didn't watch any commentaries, but when I first watched this like years ago, that was on our kicks when we were like totally after Suspiria, our minds were blown about Dario Argento and Italian horror. And since then, I watched this on I'll say the high seas when the first time I ever saw it, and so I accidentally got it in Italian and watched it in Italian, and then like I did originally, and then I turned around and watched it again in English. And man, both of them super slap. That music is awesome. Like that music like transcends things. Yeah, it's probably my second favorite next to Suspiria so far. I thought Deep Red was gonna do it, but I love this movie. This Tenebrae, it's so goofy and just crazy in parts. There's plenty of blood, plenty of murder, plenty of ladies get doing the thing, and it's a wonder to behold. Tenebrae is just one of those movies that like if you ever wanted to get into the giallo, like this genre of film, this is the way to go. This is probably his. A lot of people argue that this is his last best movie, but I mean, I don't know. He's done good work, man.
He's done good work.
I like opera a lot.
Yeah. I like opera too. And I mean, it's amazing that this movie was like in the time it was made. I think it was accidentally like brought in censored. I don't know how. I would be mad if I missed all the killings in this because there were just too many clean kills. The best kill is the axe kill. I was gonna mention that. That is the cleanest, like just blood splatteriest, funniest, greatest thing I've ever seen. Just like the first axe hit, girl, move your arm. Right. Like you're supposed to be like glass breaking. What? She sat there with the gun, like just sitting there at the table, just like waiting for her arm to get cut off. That was just the plan. So I love it. It transcends things. It's so beautiful. And like Argento's wife is in it, and he doesn't do anything horrible to her. So I guess
he doesn't, because they were in a good spot in their relationship. And it wasn't his wife, but they were partners for a long time, like 15 years or so. And they worked together. Like she's in a lot of his movies. She co-wrote Suspiria. We're talking about Daria Nicoletti. And
Dario Nicoletti. She was the assistant.
Let's be honest. The last one she's in is an opera, right? Really? And like that's when Argento's just, and then Italian cinema kind of hit a really low point for a while, and he was doing a lot of like Hollywood funded, low budget stuff that just wasn't quite clicking throughout the 90s and stuff like that. But we can dissect some of those movies at a later date. But what's crazy is you're right. So this movie is released in 1982. It was successful in Italy because Dario Argento was a huge star, huge director in Italy. He was considered up there with like Fellini. He's known as the Italian Alfred Hitchcock, right? He's that big of a deal. especially in Italy, and at that time. So where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. Oh, so it was released in Italy. It was a success. 5 years later is when it came to America with the name Unsane, right? That's why I keep it's the Unsanity. I kept whatever. It's a stupid bit I was doing today. So, and it was heavily cut, and he had problems with that. And he had problems with the name being changed to Unsane. Tenebrae is a Latin term that means darkness.
Darkness.
Yeah, darkness. And then, and in the UK, it was labeled a video nasty, right? And when it was eventually released, they cut that whole scene out of Jane getting her arm cut off and painting the walls, literally painting the walls, which is one of the best parts of the film. It's so beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, Brian, you're a beautiful man. It's just your first time watching Tenebrae, wasn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I'm really new to the giallo genre. You know, first time I saw one was that Bird with the Crystal Plumage when we did that one for a movie night. So, and I love that one. You know, I've seen a couple more since, and yeah. So yeah, this is my first time watching it, and I did watch it twice. I watched it first in Italian, and then I watched it the second time in English, and then I didn't have the volume up enough, so I was having trouble. So I put the closed caption on, and it wasn't matching what they were saying, so I was getting more confused. And then also when I watched it the second time, somehow I got more confused by the plot. So I you know, I went and looked up like a plot summary, and so now I'm good. But yeah, I loved it, man. I mean, the thing I like about the giallo is the visual presentation of the things, you know, and then the music, obviously, at least the ones I've watched all have insanely great music. But yeah, that giallo style is fabulous, man. I really like it. So I don't know. Maybe it didn't matter what language I was watching it in, because like I was just watching it, you know.
But you liked it. You enjoyed it overall.
Oh no, yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I watched it twice in a week.
Yeah, but then you said it was more confusing the second time in English, and that's when I was like, "Oh man."
Yeah, I don't know. That must be an Argento effect. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Verno.
I could not agree more. I understand exactly what you're saying, Brad. Sorry to cut you off, Robbie. I heard my name and I started talking. Dude, because I had a very, very similar experience. I had never even heard of Dario Argento until like a year and a half ago. I didn't know anything about giallo, any of that. But I went down a rabbit hole and I watched a bunch of them. First time I watched it, I enjoyed it because I knew what I was kind of getting into. It was like the fifth giallo of his that I'd watched. So I'm like, I'm not really trying to follow the plot too much. I'm just enjoying what I'm seeing. And then the second time, I'm like, okay, this time I'll pick up on the plot. And I was way more confused because I was like, it doesn't make sense. And then I watched the commentary, and then I watched it again. So the fourth time I watched it, and I enjoyed it every time, don't get me wrong. But the fourth time I watched it is when I could finally actually connect the characters together and the reasons why they're going to places and how they're related to each other. Is that his assistant? Why is she here? But you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that going on. But yeah, I loved it though. It's what I come to expect from Dario Argento, with the big set pieces and the camera movement and the fire music and the beautiful women. And it's got it all. I think it had some pretty solid acting too, as far as his catalog goes. I really enjoyed the production level. I missed some of the sites that you see in like Deep Red. I didn't think it was filmed in as cool of locations and shit, but it was still filmed in cool locations. It seemed like Italy, either it had moved on in the 80s and the style was different, and it might have been cooler looking in 82 to see the style that you saw then. I think it was newer, and today it looks a little 80s, but it's great. It's a fire movie. Good watch.
There is an element where Argento was intentionally not showing like the more common things in Rome, right? Because he had already done that, you know, in some movies and stuff like that. And it was kind of it was kind of overused, right? And so even though it was based in Rome, it's a more subdued, definitely, you know, with some of his locations. But that dude's house is awesome. That dude's house.
Yeah, I love that house, man. Yeah,
that house is amazing, man. So I'm glad you appreciated it. Now, Brooks, this was your first time watching Tenebrae as well, right?
Yeah, it was.
Well, what did you think?
It was all right.
I knew you were going to say that. Anyway, continue.
I didn't like it. I watched it twice because I wanted to see it, with the mystery and, post knowing, the twists and all that. and you know, watching the second time, I did like it a little bit better, but still, like, it didn't really catch me like a Bird with Crystal Plumage or Deep Red did. Really, like, I thought it was an all right movie. You know, I didn't find it like too boring or anything, but it was just pretty like meh. I expected more, I guess. It did have some good scenes. I did love the arm chopping scene with the blood spurt. That was probably my favorite part of the movie.
What did you think about the very expensive and arduous task that Argento led the crew into to do that 2.5 minute crane shot around that house?
That was so, yeah.
I love it. I fucking love it. But that's a moment that people like that hate Argento, they point to that scene, and then people that love Argento point to that scene, and they both are like, this is the scene that proves that he's a piece of shit. And then they'll be like, this is the scene that proves he's a genius. And I'm of the genius variety. So, well, all right, Brooks, you expected more out of this movie. I expected more out of you, but you know, we get what we get, right? So there you go. Joe, Argento, Tenebrae, what do you think?
Yeah. Before I get into that, just real quick, I've grown to just absolutely love when people pour their and Brooks does not do this all the time, but when people are like pouring their heart and soul into a movie, and then it comes around to Brooks, he's just like, I guess it's okay.
It's just all right, you know.
No, it never gets old to me now. Like now I'm just like, I'm waiting for it. I'm like, come on. Everyone's like talking about this art and stuff. And then he's just like, I guess if you're into that, sure. You know?
At least I didn't say like this one sucked.
No, exactly. But that's like what makes it like even like worse, is not even being like, I hate it. It's like the indifference. Like, I can take it or leave it, you know. But no, I mean, I really like this movie quite a bit. I am a bit of an Argento mark. You know, I mean, not everything, but, you know, in this era, of course. You know, maybe like Suspiria is still my favorite, but maybe this is the best soundtrack. Like,
I'm right there with you. I mean, because like Suspiria, I can listen to the theme, but the whole score, I can't drive in the car listening to that. But Tenebrae, I can.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's, you know, so it's up there in terms of that. But yeah, like it might be my second or third fit. Like I would really, there are some Argento movies I haven't seen in a long time. I would really have to watch more in order and really find a place for it. But it is. I think it's safe to say it's one of his best. It's gorgeous. I mean, I do love, you know, that more stylized kind of way it goes about things, you know, with movies like Suspiria. But this, you know, this obviously it works, and there are elements of his style and some of that really shine through, even in the more grounded scenes. It's always great seeing John Saxon in something, so that's always a thrill. And even though he's not in it like that much, you know, every scene he's in, it's a treat. I'm glad.
Even when he's like, "Hey, that's my hat."
The best bit. I was so bummed when I saw nobody was wearing a hat, so I wanted to ask Woody, like, how are you keeping that on your head? How are you doing that?
It's amazing.
That, and you knew it was going to be up there with something like Suspiria, because it also more or less starts at an airport. So
that's right. Yeah,
you know, it's the key to a successful horror movie. Start the airport. Because does it get worse than being at the airport? You know, so it's really like, I like to think it's a metaphor for entering into, you know, two of the most horrific hours of your life.
Yes, I like that. You're already stressed, you know, and now you're like, where am I? And
do I take my shoes off or on? Do I take the laptop out? Is it go in a separate bin? I keep it in now. Do I take my belt off? I keep the belt on, but the thing went off anyway. Like, it's a nightmare.
And you got to time your bicycle ride to meet your luggage. I mean, I don't know how you do that.
Like in the commentary, and Verno, you can attest to this if you watch the same commentary with the the lady who's like the historian, the Argento expert, right? And she's like, this is the first clue that something's not right with this dude, is that he's biking on the way to the airport. Like on the bridge.
Why
right?
his stuff is like biking behind him?
No reason to be doing that. Like that's ridiculous. And then they point out, they're like, notice he doesn't seem to care about physical exercise in any other part of the movie. So it's not about exercise. It's about just being crazy, being insane. So let's talk about this cast of characters. I think it was somebody who said that this may be one of the best performed Argento films, and I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think Verno said that.
After Two Evil Eyes last week, that's there with it. No, I made it. Yeah, that was a great one too.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel, man. But
that's so good.
Yeah, this one has a really great cast with some really good performances. So let's dive into them. Jelani, who do you want to kick us off with? What's a performance you want to highlight?
You had to get me first because, man, I'm choosing the freaking Tenebrae dog. The freaking dog is like to me the star of the show. That's the most sadistic dog I have ever seen. Like that dog chased that girl like down. Like that dog wanted her dead. I don't
That's
know
one of my favorite
was.
That's one of my favorite things in this whole movie is out of nowhere, this dog just like
dog. And it's just it runs out and it's attacking this girl. And like she's fighting it off as best she can, getting bitten to death. And like she's jumped in like over 2 fences. And this thing's like, I don't give a fuck. And like backs up the second time. And it's a high fence. You should have stopped right there. In normal movies, you stop there. Like you get to the high fence, the dog's like, where's that? No, that dog was like, fuck it. Jumped on that fence and right over the top. It was insane. I laughed so hard and I forgot about it because like it's been years since I've seen this movie. And like 2 things took me off guard. It was the arm chopping because I remembered it, but I didn't remember it when it came. And then the other thing was the freaking dog. And that dog that's probably the best damn character in this movie. I mean, I love the acting and of everyone in it, but like that dog's dedication, I was like, you can't work with children and animals in film. And like you got this dog like down. I was a fan, and like I screamed from the praises of that dog. I don't even know that dog's name.
Yeah.
I don't know where that dog came from. I don't know what happened to that dog afterwards. That dog didn't come back. It was just so weird. I was like, why is this random occurring? She gets bitten by dogs. It scares her into the killer's house, which is that freaking gorgeous house. And then, like, she still gets killed anyway. Finds out it's the killer, still gets killed. And I'm like,
and it mirrors. There's a lot of mirroring. There's a lot of mirroring and parallels in this movie, right? But it mirrors the scene in the opening when she's accosted by the homeless guy, right? And then winds up getting killed by the dude, right?
Killed.
But dude, you're right. That dog. It's like the fight in They Live. When you're watching it, you're like, okay, it's over. It's not over. That you're right. That I bet Argento's like more. Yeah, more like just the dog keeps going, man. There's no barrier, right? I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't even think about that. But
they didn't kill the dog. The dog didn't. It's just gone. Like it's forever. And I was like,
I don't think Dario Argento likes dogs or cats. Yeah. Like if I really think
or lizards.
Yeah, everybody was talking about like, is he a misogynist? No, he just doesn't like animals apparently. What about you, Brian? What's the performance you want to highlight?
What I'll go with Anne. I don't know. I liked her acting, and so that's Dario Argento's partner.
Yeah, Daria Nicoletti.
Okay,
voiced by Teresa Russell, I believe.
Okay,
in the American one at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I don't know. She seemed to be like a kind of good constant through the whole thing, and then and her scream at the end, I thought was like that was a heck of a scream.
What a way to end the movie too.
Yeah. And that was I loved it. It just ended there. Like nothing else, no exposition, none of this, all this other stuff. And I thought that was a perfect way to end that, But yeah, it was I found it this one, like a lot of the characters out I don't know, I wasn't getting too attached to hardly any of them or anything. I was struggling with trying to come up with a favorite character, but so I thought her performance was really good. But there was a lot. I do agree in general, performances were pretty solid. So,
and do you agree that the dog scene was awesome?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. Yeah, the persistence blew my mind, especially like at the end, the last bit when he's like trying to get in through the windows.
Yes,
you know, because like that was like, he hadn't been around for a while. Then all of a sudden he's like, oh damn, he's still there.
No kidding. All right, Verno, why don't you tell us what performance you want to highlight, and then guide us through the rest? I got to step out for just a sec.
No problem. I'm going to go with the blonde female inspector, because somebody's got to show this woman some goddamn respect. She gets so disrespected throughout the whole movie, and it's something that I would have never picked up on the first watch. But the more I pay attention to it, I feel like it's done intentionally, because the main inspector, he's giving this big monologue, and then at the end, he's like, pass out the cards. She passes out the cards. Later on, she hands him a book. And then at a later point in the movie, she comes up and she's trying to talk to him, and John Saxon just dismisses her. And later on, she's going off and getting an autograph. She's smitten with the celebrity. So there's all these little things where she's just like, does it fit the role of inspector? And her performance wasn't great or anything. And I will say there aren't any characters in this movie.
Yeah.
There's good performances, but I couldn't tell you a single personality trait that anybody has. But that's kind of a thing across all of Italian films. But I just thought that was funny. So I wanted to highlight her and show the woman a little bit of respect. So Brooks, what do you got?
I like John Saxon in this movie a lot. Like, John Saxon's a guy you do not see a lot, but when you do see him, like, you're just glad to see him there. And his characters, I like his character in this movie as like the friend who's like, you know, he's really close with this guy, but at the same time, like, you find out at the end that he's been like fucking with his lady the whole time. Is like, you know, because he's always like, you know, such a positive guy, like he's, you know, laughing and joking, but secretly he's like, you know, kind of and I don't really understand the relationship between him and Jane, like how serious it was, like what the deal was with it. But like, I don't know, it seems like he was really hung up on her, and like this guy is like, who supposedly his friend is like really, you know, is really like, you know, twisting the knife in his back by doing this behind his back.
That's why I think he's like so over the top friendly with him the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like putting on this big show, like, oh, we're great buddies.
Yeah.
So did Brooks say Bruner or Bulmer, I should say?
Yeah.
John Saxon.
John Saxon.
Yeah.
Wait, who did you say, Bruno?
The female inspector.
Oh, that's right. I wish my partner was a man who could run fast.
You have nothing to bitch about.
Oh God.
Her whole purpose of being there, by the way, is just to kind of look kind of like Daria Nicoletti at times, so that she gets killed at the end instead, and we have that moment. One of the best killer reveals in one of these films, right? Where they just pan it up, like they don't linger on it too much. It's fantastic. What about you, Joe? What's character you want to highlight?
You know, I'll go with you know, Veronica Lario as Jane. There's a few scenes where she stands out, but like obviously she needed to sell that arm chopping scene, and she does. If she didn't pull it off, we would not be talking about that scene. You know, but she pulls it off, and it's brilliant and amazing. And then, you know, just her like stalking about, like, you know, it's not like she's like acting that much, but she's able, you know, a lot of that's the directing, is, you know, driving out, looking up the window and stuff, like she comes off as a genuinely menacing character. She comes off as a very good red herring through, especially in like, you know, the first two acts, like really pulls that off. And, you know, I think, you know, she is definitely one of the bigger pieces in terms of the acting in the film that, you know, brings it all together and makes this movie work.
I love the first time we get a mention of her is when she calls Peter at the airport, and that whole conversation is like, I'm just going to hang up on you. I'm just going to hang up. I'm just going to hang up right now. Really like him. So I will. Okay. those are some great picks. I got 3 on my list, actually 4, but one was just like in case everybody took all the good ones. That was Cristiano because he's kind of creepy, right? He's tell me about what's he call them? The starts with an A.
Deviance.
Aberrant behavior.
The aberrant behavior, right? But I really like Maria, played by Laura Wendell, because just like Jelani wanted to spotlight the dog, I want to spotlight what she had to go through to film that scene as well, right?
That's harrowing, man.
Giuliano Gemma as Detective Germani. I really like the detective in this one. Once again, very ineffectual police work, right? By I love that, but like I just really like him. His delivery, or he's actually voiced by somebody else. And one of my favorite lines, I only drink on the job. And he just pounds that scotch back, man. Yeah. But I really want to give a shout out to Peter Neal. That's Anthony, what is it, Franciozia? Or what's his name? Yeah. Anthony, whatever, however you say it. Peter Neal, he is awesome in this movie because he plays the part so well that when you're watching it for the first time, and if you're not familiar with Tenebrae, some slight spoilers here, but there are 2 killers in this movie, right? And I just love the way that he seems totally cool. You don't ever buy, at least the first time I watched it, I never bought into the idea of him as a suspect in any moment, right? And then they play that so well. And then in the third act, the last 10 minutes of this movie, he is batshit crazy and he pulls it off and he sells it so freaking well. So let's talk about the style and structure. Got my notes now, so I'm not rambling so much, I hope. It's filled with style. It's got amazing camera work, the way that camera moves, the way it glides. Yes, a lot of scaffolding and a crane that Dario Argento had to rent and bring in from Paris was required to do that giant shot, 2.5 minutes, that spotlights the soundtrack, that spotlights that music where it just goes up, over. And like Joe Bob Briggs is so annoyed with it. He's like, and yes, let's focus on these shingles. Look at those shingles. But I love it because it's giving you this idea of just where is this killer? Where could he be? Look at all the vulnerable spots. Like we're seeing everything set up. And that entire thing gets paid off in, I think, 2 of my favorite kills as well. Doesn't hurt that the one lady just keeps falling out of her, Anyway, it's shot with imagination and beauty. Beautiful murder. I love it. Structure-wise, I think all 3 acts are great. In particular, Act 3, like I keep saying, it's tightly paced, though it does have some flaws with the story, some convenient bits here and there, but I'm not trying to really dive too much into the story of an Argento, just the feeling of an Argento flick, and that's what I love about the style and structure of this movie. It is glorious to me. What about you, Jelani? What do you think about style and structure?
Absolutely, man. I agree 100% as well. It's shot wonderfully. Oh my goodness, it's a really pretty film. The horrible murders that happen are some of the cleanest kills I've seen in ages. It's just one of those things where in a giallo film, you expect the killer. All you do is see the hands. They're always Argento's hands. You always see the killer planning and plotting what's going to happen next. You see the things, and I love the flashback scenes for where with the girl and she's with these guys and she just gets down and she's naked for no reason, and then these guys just walk up to her, stand over and well, it's time to go, and then
it ain't for no reason.
One guy, I know what the reason is. Everyone knows what the reason is. She's just ready to go. And then the other guy walks up and she's like, yeah, and warning. And he slaps her and runs away. And it's just the whole scene is just what's going on? In the middle of this movie.
I can imagine that being the part that really confuses people when they watch this movie. Because I remember it being confusing to me when you're watching. What does any of this have to do with anything that happens in this damn movie?
Why is this here? And but it plays a part into the third act. It tells you what's happening, what the mindset of the second killer, and it's insane that it's pieced together this way. And of course, killer gets dies, and it's I love that kill too. It's out of left field, and I loved how this movie was paced and how the red herrings were there. You don't know who the killer is until you find out who the killer is, but it's not satisfying enough. It doesn't feel satisfying enough. But then you get that extra reveal, that twist, and it just blows it away. This is by far my favorite giallo. Like I've seen opera, and I've watched with the giallos that I've seen with the Pearl of Crystal Plumage, and Deep Red, Profondo Rosso. They're excellent. I love it. In those movies,
have you seen? I hate to interrupt you, man. Have you seen New York Ripper yet? The Fulci film?
No.
Bro, you'll love that one. That one's so sleazy. You'll love it. Trust me. It's
I love the sleaze. I love sleazes. I love sleazy movies.
It's way more sleazy than you think. Probably.
Awesome. Perfect. But it's not just that. It's not just that though. It's a good element. I mean, throw that shit in, please. If I'm gonna watch someone like horribly murder these people, I want to see some titties. So it is what it is. But altogether, this is a great film. It's put together really well for me. I love the whodunit and the fact that the whodunit like twisted this well, and like I knew who the killer was like for years ago, but watching it again, man, it blows me away. It's just like, wow, I start to see those pieces come together, and it's told well. It's a brilliant film.
That whole turn at the end, right? And then the way that the actor plays Peter Neal when he's sitting there, and he totally sells it when he's like basically telling the detective, I figured out who the killer was so early. Like, bro, it was so easy.
Yeah, 30 pages in.
Yeah, exactly. And so
it's like
I just really was turned, like that turn is so perfectly played for me in this film. What about you, Brian? What do you think about the style and structure of Tenebrae?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. Yeah, like visually, it's just stunning throughout it, and it relies on the visuals to tell the story too, right? I mean, because those scenes with the with the woman on the beach and then when she's killed, I mean, that's like that's signaling his what triggered him to go on this kind of rampage, and it was kind of a slow rampage and stuff, but it was and I love that 2.5 minute scene. It's fabulous. Like I don't see how you could not like. I mean, if you don't like that, then you probably just don't like giallo movies. Period. I mean, because that's kind of what giallo represents, right? I mean, it's technically well done and it's gorgeous. It doesn't have to serve the shingles thing, whatever. I mean,
not all gialli are as well crafted or technically crafted as some of the ones you've seen, Brian. Just I mean, there's a lot of gialli that are just
Yeah.
shitty.
Well, to me, the outstanding part of gialli is the visual storytelling parts with that. And one of my favorite bits though was the when Peter Neal was behind the inspector, and you just see him sweating, and then when he dips over, you just see him like that. I absolutely love that one. And then but I like the use of the some of the handheld stuff too, right? Because like that was really unsettling. And there was a lot of, that scene I just mentioned, a lot of scenes where the character's looking directly into the camera to also keep you unsettled and everything. I mean, those are really effective techniques, so yeah, I mean, technically with the cinematography, like it's just, it's great throughout. I mean, there's, someone was earlier mentioning how tightly paced it was. I always appreciate that. I mean, that's like, I mean,
I was able to watch it 4 times this week because it's so tightly paced. It was great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was trying to, I did the thing where I was like going to try to watch an hour and then watch, finish it up the next night. But it was just like, I didn't see the point. Like,
it's over.
There's no place to stop.
It's over before you know it for me, man. It's got like this music video quality to it almost, right? Like, I don't know. There's something about it that just, it never lets up. It never pulls my attention away. I never want to not be watching Tenebrae. It's insane how much the more I watch this movie, the more I just appreciate it because it's so absurd and ridiculous, but it's so incredibly well crafted. It's like meticulous, man.
Yeah. And the thing on the story structure, I think where I was confused the second time is like, I guess like I didn't realize that it was him just going mad. like there, because I was kind of looking for motivations and like plotting and strategizing things out, and I'm like, how could you pull all this? You know, it just doesn't make sense. How, because like you were saying, everything was so coincidental. I think that was just kind of throwing me off. And but I say that it didn't. None of that detracted from me enjoying the movie, though.
Yeah,
like
it's one of these. It's one of these strange, like, toppling things that's going on here, where he has this incident in his past that has stayed with him, right? He has this incident now with his, I don't know if she's like his wife or his fiance or his girlfriend or whatever, right? But like he's dealing with her. She's sleeping with his agent, right? Sleazy John Saxon, right?
Yeah.
And you get all that going on, and then he's losing it. This is an opportunity. He's killed the murderer. He's able to now pen more. He can now take care of, like, he's got a way that he could do it and get away with it, right? And he just slowly goes into it, and like so. But it also starts when he writes the book Tenebre, right? And so then like it's just this weird stacking of like this almost meta element. I think this is one of the most meta movies Argento ever made, and I think I really appreciate it for that. We'll get into all that. But Verno, what do you think about the style and structure of Argento's Tenebrae?
It's pretty damn good, as they would say. The first time I watched this movie, it was the first, I think, thing I'd seen after Suspiria and Inferno. So I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I was actually kind of disappointed in the style because it's so different, but it's way more refined than his earlier giallo. Like, I love Deep Red. I still think that's probably my favorite of his giallo movies, just because it's I don't know, it's just more raw in a lot of ways. This is way more refined, and it's more subtle. There's less camera movement, where he was going wild with it before. He holds back a lot more, which is cool. You know, there's benefits to that too. But I do miss the colors, and I never noticed how much until this last watching. There are pastels everywhere. All the women are all, it looks like Easter in this movie throughout the whole time. And it's just, I never noticed that. It really stood out to me.
Did you notice how much the red pops out, especially like on the high heels, on the telephone in the airport, like things like that? And
that's the other thing, right? The contrast, the contrast in this movie. Just, it seems so fucking simple, and it is so simple, but it's so effective. Just a white wall. Let's just spray it with blood.
A white T-shirt, right? Spray with like white, the red on the white. Oh, it's so. It's so beautiful, murder is in Argento's eyes, man.
Last thing I wanted to point out is just, and this is in all of his films, but his detail shots, the cleaning of the blade, the close-ups on people's eyes, those are like some of my favorite bits of these movies. So those always stand out. Most people don't take the time, or they don't even care about that kind of thing. But that's really what separates him in a lot of ways from, especially even the other Italian guys don't do what he does as far as that goes.
You're right. You know, this is why he gets considered up there with like Fellini. You know, like, I mean, that's a big deal. Like, Fellini's like cinema gold to them over there, right? Like, that's like a big prestigious director. A lot of people think Fellini's pretentious, but I really like Fellini. But I haven't seen a lot of his films, just a handful. All right, Brooks, what do you think about the style and structure of this film?
Well, I mean, the third act in this movie is really good. I like the end. I love the fact that how the killer is killed by a gaudy art piece. I thought that was a funny little thing.
Yeah, I'm going to mention that with my theme presentation. And by the way, Verno, I know you usually watch the Horror Geek. Did you watch the Horror Geek's presentation on Tenebrae?
No, I didn't.
There was a really great bit in there where I just fucking lost it. Go ahead, Brooks. I'm sorry.
But like a lot of the buildup didn't grab me. You know, I thought like a lot of, especially the earlier kills, were more subdued than I would expect. Like, you didn't really get the crazy ones until the end with, like, you know, the arm chopping off and getting impaled by the art piece, the crazy ass dog. But I did kind of like how the first kill is like him just shoving pages of his book into this lady's mouth.
Well, that's not the author on the first kill, right?
Yeah, it's the other dude.
Yeah. There's the other killer. Yeah.
I thought that was funny. Like he's it's kind of like bookends too. You know, in the end, the killer gets killed by one art piece, and the first victim is also getting killed by a different kind of art piece.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Maybe the movie's a little bit more layered than you thought initially, Brooks. You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think, but like the connective tissue of the movie, I think is where it kind of loses me.
Connective tissue is the music, Brooks.
I love the music.
No, that's. I'm glad that you said that because a lot of that stuff really is intentional, and I'm glad that you noticed it.
Yeah.
Verno, the bit I was thinking of was the horror geek goes. So seriously, who just has like a switchblade that squirts fake blood out just in their pocket? Just
ready to do this.
Yeah, a person driven by madness goes, "Oh wait, I'm going to need one of these trick ones just in case."
I think we all need to do that. Like, make sure you got your fake knife on you.
I love how well you can see it, especially in 4K. Like when he actually does that scene where he's cutting, you see it spraying out in different spots out of the blade.
Yeah, that's nice. That's really cool. That's all it takes. What about you, Joe? What do you think about the style and structure?
Yeah, no, I really like the structure in particular, like everyone's been talking about. It's very tight. It's not one of these horror movies where you're waiting like an hour for like a good kill. It's not one of those horror movies where they get the good kill out of the way in the first like 10 minutes and then bore you to tears for an hour before anything else happens. Like it is a well-paced movie. The deaths and for the most part, they're pretty stylish. And they're pretty evenly spread out. It does a good job at having some of those layers and having these things going on without like spelling it out for the audience or like making it like really beating you over the head with it. I do, you know, and when it comes to Argento, I do love more like the colors and stuff like that you get from movies like Suspiria, like I was saying before. I feel like opera, while it's not as good overall, I feel has a little more of a balance of like the flashy style I like and also being grounded.
What also has that giant freaking crane shot right in the opera house where it's like the bird or whatever? Like, oh my god, have you seen how they've done that? Like he has this whole rig that's just spinning. Like it's insane. If anybody hasn't seen opera, get ready. Horror Fest opera is on the list. So
awesome. I love that movie. It's really good. I think this overall, and a lot of it is also the score. The score gives this movie like so many extra points to like, you know, get over things. But yeah, like I think stylely opera edges this out, but structurally this edges out like it's, you know, so but again it's like they're both great, but yeah, so yeah, I mean it really works. It's great. Again, the things that drag this movie down, like that prevent it from being like perfect, are mostly in like the coincidences in the plot and stuff like that, and some of the things that have to happen. Like I love the bit with the dog, but to instigate it, the character has to be dumber than a box of rocks and just be like, I'm scared of this dog. Let me attack it with a stick. Like, you know, like stuff like that, where it's just like, you're like,
trying to save her life, man. She get attacked by the dog. That dog didn't win.
But no, like, so like there's parts of that where it's like, this is really stupid. And you know, other things, again, like the fake razor he's holding, like a lot of other stuff going on that you're just like, what are you even doing? But it's all done. It feels like it's sacrificing logic to keep the pace tight and to move things along. And I can respect that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We've already talked a lot about the music. So the music is done by 3 of 4 of Goblin, right? In particular, Claudio Simonetti, Fabio Pignatelli, and Massimo Morante. I love this music so much. Like the main theme on Suspiria is, I think, the greatest theme in horror movies, period. I think that's just the best. But I can put this in and just jam. There's a song on there where it's like them doing their version of like I don't know, like they're like, we just need a rock song. And in the movie, it's in that long ass scene of John Saxon just sitting there
Sitting
looking
there
at
watching
people,
everything.
and I love that because you're like, he's in broad daylight, surrounded by people, but because Argento is lingering so long there, like it becomes very scary, and you're like, oh no, this is dangerous, and then he gets killed, and like it's just so crazy to me how that works. But they're playing this like thing where they even have cowbell. I always feel like Argento was like, "Get me, Don't Fear the Reaper," right? I want that cowbell, and then Goblin's like, or 3/4 of Goblin is like, "Yeah, we can do that." Yeah, and so anyway, the entire score is amazing. Going to my notes so I don't ramble too much. I love Argento. I can ramble on and on and on. It's driving, it's poppy, yet it's creepy and unsettling and ultimately incredibly mesmerizing to me. And it's got an energy to it. It's got those moments too where it does have the do like the theme and the beat, and it's kind of disco-y and it's going for it and I'm loving it. But then it's got those moments like with Jane's kill, when she's spraying the wall with her blood, and it just goes into this like very unsettling, unnerving kind of synthy thing. And that's what I love about Claudio Simonetti. Like, he to me is the key factor. Like, he is so freaking good. And this has got diegetic music and non-diegetic music. I want to point that out, right? Because it switches back and forth where people in the movie are playing the score to the movie. And then another point, the movie score is just the score, right? So I really like that in this movie in particular. It is definitely Argento playing with the music, and music is incredibly important to Argento, so much to the fact that he is actively part of the composition, and he usually has a lot of the composition done before he even starts shooting because he likes to play it on set to kind of set the mood and the tone. This, I will say tonight, is my favorite Goblin soundtrack and my favorite Argento soundtrack. And I get it, man. Profondo Rosso, Suspiria, I get it. But this one I can jam to any time, any car ride. It's a must for me. What do you think about the music, Jelani?
Yeah, it's all I think about. When I think about Suspiria, I think about the music. When I think about Deep Red, it's the music. And Tenebrae is no different. And 3/4 of Goblin or not, man, they're actually blowing it out of the water. This music absolutely slaps. I know I cannot stop saying it. It's paced well. It has that 80s. It's like a corny 80s feel, but at the same time, like it belongs there. It's the most belonging music that you can watch for this movie. Like, I don't picture any other soundtracks being as decent as this for this film. I don't know why. It just feels like it's supposed to be there, and it's its own character. Like we say a lot in these films. I mean, if he's composing them like before he's doing the movie, that means music more important than anything else. That means he wants to tell the story with this music, which he does exceptionally well, and just decides to make a movie around it. It's so clean. I really enjoyed it. I would say, I guess Suspiria would be slightly higher for me, but Tenebrae, bruh, it's a real deal. It's a real deal, Holyfield. And every time I hear it, like, especially, and this is the weird part, Robbie, you play it a lot. You don't know that you play Tenebrae a lot. So I've heard it. I've heard it numerous times for many years from you, at least on some form or fashion. So I know what this music was before I even played the music again. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Tenebrae.
I love that damn bit. Oh, there's a great part where he goes. And then I don't know if anybody knows the French like electronic band Justice, right? But they have a song that uses the Tenebrae theme, and it's like,
Oh, cool.
So freaking good. Check it out. I can't remember the name of the song. I'll look it up while Brian discusses what he thinks about the music.
Yeah. Well, I think the music is over hard. Is that a bit though? Are you gonna? Shake me? Never mind. Yeah, no, that's I love this one. Yeah,
Now I'd like 2 eggs over hard.
There we go. Yeah, so no, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah,
Hold on real quick, Brian. Hold on.
Okay.
The song is called Phantom by Justice. I'll post it up in the PCP Army. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I agree that Suspiria theme is just, it's iconic and everything. But yeah, this one from beginning to end, like, yeah, I've been listening to it all week ever since I watched the movie and downloaded it immediately and just been listening to it ever since. And I mean, we talked about that 2.5 minute scene, that one, the Lesbo song, that one, I freaking love that track, man. I rerun that one several times, man.
Is that what it's called?
That's the song title. Yeah.
I figured we should clarify.
It's a Latin term.
Well, that's weird because he's murdering lesbian women while that music's playing.
I love how he gets the clue and he's like, "What do you think this means?" And he reads it and he's like, "It means that whoever's very intelligent because he learned Latin." I'm like, "Or no, it means he's fucking crazy."
Yeah, it definitely more means that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to learn that a lot of it was written beforehand because when I found that out about other movies, not just soundtracks but sound effects and everything like that, that's really cool because it really works. I mean, they can build the visuals and direct things better when it's just fully integrated that way. I think when it's put on afterwards. I mean, that's got to be hard to sync up and certain things. So yeah, this is and I think it makes it, at least the Giallo ones I've seen, that's one of the things I love the most about it is the mix with the music and the visuals. I mean, they just, it's fully integrated package for you to enjoy. So yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of a fully integrated package that is ready to enjoy, Verna, what do you think about the music in Tenebre? And what's up, Dylan? Love to see you here, man.
Dylan, my man. The music's fire as fuck. One might say fire as fuck. I'm pretty sure. But no, it is. You said a couple nights ago on Dylan's Horror Show, you had said that you thought this was better than Deep Red. And I did actually watch Deep Red on Saturday night too. And I still like Deep Red's better, but fucking this Tenebre is so much, I'll say the same word again, it's so much more refined than it was before. Like, it's way more layered. They're much better musicians, they're better songwriters, but again, it's not like that jazzy. Deep Red sounds like a live recording, and this sounds like studio planned out, you know what I mean? And I'm just more into that other sound, but it is fire. It's just it's weird, dude. Same thing in Deep Red. I've read a bunch of reviews on Deep Red, and there's so many young people who are like, this movie would be great if they took out all this shitty old music and like it's so, like you said, it's like a music video. It stands out so much. It's all about the music at that time, and it can be distracting. I could totally see why people would dog on it, but it's fucking awesome. It sets a really unique vibe because it's not. Would you guys agree? And I'm really curious. Like, do you find the scene suspenseful? Like her getting chased by that dog. I feel like the music, it adds something different, but it takes away from a part of the suspense in those scenes. All those scenes that are like that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily
quiet.
It's not necessarily suspenseful, but it is entertaining.
Right.
And
I think it's engrossing too.
Yes,
it's different. And then, like, I literally, like, especially during Tenebrae, I'm sitting there fucking because it's 4 on the floor, like, dance music while this is going on. It's very unique, but it does take away from what other people are trying to do.
But that's what makes it stand out, though, right? Like, that's why it's so different, right? Because it's not necessarily about the suspense. It's not. He's playing with the formula that Jolly have taken for granted, and he's twisting it around, right? And he's trying to do something different, and he's trying to stand out. And I think the music's a part of that. There's plenty of ways you could, like Deep Red, Profondo Rosso, which Goblin came in to do after the original guy got fired because Dario did not like it, right? And I think that may be why he started really focusing in on the music, right? And with Suspiria, it even says music by Goblin with collaboration by Dario Argento, right? And that whole thing for Suspiria was pretty much completed before they filmed. But like the way it does, like in Profondo Rosso, Deep Red, where it's like boom, boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, dum, 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 and it is more prog rock and this kind of stuff. This one is tighter, it's more concise. This is Goblin and Argento for the cocaine era. You know,
There are more different elements to this soundtrack too, where there's more bits. The last thing I wanted to say is, I can't believe nobody's mentioned Pink Floyd. Like, it is so fucking Pink Floyd. And then I found out that he tried to get Floyd to do the Deep Red soundtrack.
Yep.
There are bits that are straight out of Shine On You Crazy Diamonds, and I think it's the Wall Part 2 or whatever. But it's very, very Floyd, and Floyd's like probably my favorite band of all time. So
hell yeah.
Fire.
Another person who loves Pink Floyd is Brooks. Brooks, what do you think, not about Pink Floyd, but about the music in Tenebrae?
It's good. I like it. I've always liked that kind of synthy sound. This soundtrack reminded me a lot, strangely, of like it was one of the Friday the 13th movies. Maybe it was part 3.
Yes, that's the disco theme. Yeah,
it had like the disco theme kind of music to it.
I fucking love that so much, but it's not as good as this.
No. Yeah, this is big leagues. But it works, to create the atmosphere. It's it's also like it makes you bob your head a little bit. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, you're sitting there watching people get just horrendously and beautifully murdered, and you're just like,
fire it up, fire it up. I love how they kind of did that meta commentary of the girl is actually listening to that soundtrack.
Yeah,
it's like you don't realize until she's like, turn that down, and then she like just shuts it off and the soundtrack stops.
You never realize when you're listening to the own song that is the score of your murder, right? So there you go. What about you, Joe? What do you think about the music? You already said engrossing. I like that term.
Yeah, like because again, it doesn't necessarily always make it like scary. It's not like the kind of soundtrack that's like it's that creepy into the jump scare or something that I think is way too overused and doesn't work half as well as people act like it does. But it really sucks you into like the atmosphere of the movie. And, in particular, one of my favorite bits, and you touched on it earlier, was when sometimes people are like listening to the soundtrack. When the scene where the lesbians get killed, and because she's listening to the soundtrack too loudly. That's incredible. I love that bit. It's so good.
Yeah, it is. And it's him playing with film and reality and sound and all these different things together. And it's just such a textured experience. And the music brings a lot to it. So Argento doesn't necessarily care about story. Things don't have to logically make sense narratively, but they have to make sense thematically. There is a lot of themes in this movie that we can unpack. Jelani, I want to know what stood out to you. What is Tenebrae about to you? What's it speaking?
I think it's art imitating life, because I think Tenebrae is like his confession. Peter Neal's confession to the murder that he committed when he was younger. He wrote it into his book, and it's a huge bestseller, and he's trying to get it even larger. And his life is basically crumbling around him on top of him losing his fiance to his best friend's agent. I mean, a lot of things are happening to this guy, and it focuses on him, but it's his art, the things that he feels like craft him now as an author. And it's slowly driving him mad, and these murders start to happen. And and he still feels a little strange, about his original kill, but he's been bottling it up, and I guess this stuff brings it out of him, and he decides to continue his art of beautiful murder. So that's what I think it is in some form or fashion. But
all right,
that's what I got from it.
Hell yeah, man.
And then he's murdered, and then of course, like y'all said, he's murdered by art.
He's killed by art, and the first kill is by art, right? Yeah, so that's nice. That's a nice book in there. Brian, what about you? What's this movie speaking to you?
Well, I get one of the things I got out of it was just the kind of study of the giallo form. He uses all the tropes, but then he starts, subverting some of that stuff by, with switching the killer, and then the stuff from his, huh? Yeah, and not a lady. Yeah. Yeah. And but it has the gloves, and the extravagant visual presentations and all
There's
that
even
stuff.
the bit where the murders start with the straight blade, right?
Yeah.
Right, the straight razor, and then
and just
he
goes to the
loses it
axe.
and goes to the axe. And that's like Argento taking trying to take Giallo into the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Patrick,
And then,
hello.
yeah, and I guess just kind of with all the reflections, like the kind of duality of man kind of thing. But I mean, there's like just all the mirrors in there. The Anne character and the inspector. I mean, they kind of switch. And there's lots of pairings. And I mean, and there's the lesbian scene. She could see her in the mirror, and then she was killed on the mirror. And then basically roughly right halfway through the movie, when it kind of switches killers, it has that mirror, thing with the light reflecting on it. I mean, that's like, I don't know, it's like cutting the movie in half. I mean, to have the two sides and everything. It's just, it's that was one of the main things I got out of it.
Absolutely, that duality is there. That's definitely something I wanted to touch on. What about you, Verno? What is this movie speaking to you?
You guys obviously pointed out the problem. The main theme is the dangerous art. It's kind of like a response to the video nasties and a comment on people saying that his art was dangerous. So now people are getting killed by art. Like you guys have pointed out. The other, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, just like the two, he did it in Deep Red and I think other movies where he's got bits about like sexual preference in there. That's like not a main theme, but it's a theme that runs through his work. And then gender roles, again, with what I brought up with the inspector, like the women, she's disrespected. And then some of the other women they're not treated so well, I guess, because they're murdered. But I guess those would be the main themes outside of the sub themes outside of the main theme of the art, the dangerous art.
Yeah, I do there. For instance, there's a lot, like, I like how Argento, he is very interested in playing with gender at times. For instance, the woman in the flashbacks was born a male, developed as a woman, and then just lived her life as a woman, right? And so like there's that, and then it's Bird with Crystal Plumage, where Carlo's boyfriend is actually played by a woman
and voiced by a man.
Right? So he's like playing with this stuff, and I think as much shit as Argento got thrown at him, he is actually, I think a little bit more progressive sometimes than people give him credit for. I don't know.
I think it's like, what's his name? Roman Polanski. He can make Rosemary's Baby and still rape somebody. You know what I mean?
Well, Dario Argento's never been accused.
No, I get it, but he's been accused of treating women bad and all that. You can be a misogynist and still make
when he gets his own daughter is crazy.
For 10 years. Yeah. Will it help if I let you know that I supported the equal rights movement? I thought this was an afternoon show. What's going on here? No, nicely put though, man. It definitely, that whole idea about art and art's influence is there in a response to the criticism. What about you, Brooks? What do you think this movie's saying?
I think this movie is about how like an artist's intentions can kind of get lost in interpretation of their work. Like, it starts off in the beginning, when he lands and like he's talking to the girl who's like I guess planning to interview him, and she she started grilling him about the misogynistic themes of his book. Like, are you a misogynist? And like, obviously that wasn't his intent. Like, he wasn't intending, to make a misogynist work. But, and then again, like the other guy, the creepy guy who ends up being the first killer,
Cristiano.
He's talking about, the killer kills these people because they're degenerates, and he's like, I didn't write those characters to be degenerate. They were like in a perfectly happy, relationship. And that's just the way it is with art, like you make something and people like the whole idea is for people to look at it, interpret it, and like, take what they get out of it, and, people are going to get the wrong things, especially like, when you're dealing with art that deals like themes like extreme violence or, sexual assault and stuff like that. People are going to take stuff from that, and like some people are going to take it like wrong, and like, that's how you get these weirdo psycho killers like this guy.
Both of them. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Joe? What do you think this movie's saying? What's the theme of Tenebrae?
I think there's, obviously what everyone touched on, but also I think he's like adding this like extra message of people's like hypocrisy, and also using horror as an excuse for bad behavior, because you have the first killer. He's a bad person. He uses the book as an excuse to kill people, and then Peter Neal there uses the fact that there's already a serial killer to kill people. And it's all this like, just like, oh, I'm gonna blame this on why I'm doing awful things, which is what people have done with horror as a genre for decades, in modern times with movies and comics and everything. And then you see the other sides of these characters, and everyone's like trying to go through their lives while also like excusing bad behavior. Like clearly Anne's been excusing Peter's bad behavior, and John Saxon's character is acting real nice while also doing something that he would clearly not like happening. You have all these things going. You have Tildy, who's this strong feminist who's then acting like a misogynist towards her girlfriend, when it's like, it's you sick pig who's like looking at other men that way, and things like that. Is like, she is being who she hates, and all of these things, like I think it's actually maybe saying more than the movie probably gets credit for.
I agree with everything everybody said, because y'all hit everything that I have here on my notes. Number one, I wrote duality. Kind of what Joe was talking about there, the hypocrisy of our duality, right? All those mirrors are there because they're reflections of ourselves, right? So not just the female inspector and Daria are parallels to each other, but the Peter is paralleled by two individuals in this film, including the detective, right? And that's why that scene when they're almost the same person, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then he's also paralleled with Cristiano, who's the first killer, right? But that's the comparison he doesn't want. And that whole idea of like, the detective can never figure out like the ending of Peter Neal's novels, but Peter Neal can figure out the ending of this detective's story before the detective even has a clue of anything. You know what I'm saying? So there's those parallels. There's that duality, that dual nature. Tildy, that whole scene there about how, she's like, you filthy whore. Like, I wouldn't touch you right now if my life depended on it, or something like that. Like, they're playing with this. And Argento's playing with that, and I really like that. It's about a little bit about repression and trauma, right? There's elements of that in so many of these different characters, but it's so subtle. It's there through the feeling of the film, not so through the narrative, except for the stuff that happened to Peter, which leading in a little bit to what Joe was saying, like that's another thing, like that's an excuse at the end of the film as to why he's doing it. He's also just doing it because he was, plenty of people have trauma, and some people have greater trauma than others, but are you working at it, right? There's a point there, right? Argento responding to the criticism of his work. That is straight there. Like, when Tildy is talking to Peter, that is a lot, some critics coming at Argento, and that's him trying to explore it. But the way he's exploring it is through that dual nature of man. And there's a lot of like doppelgangers in this film. And I think that's accentuated by that. And the last thing I wrote here was, does art inspire violence? We start with the killing by art. And I never made that connection until it was brought up tonight, but I knew that at the end. I knew that at the very end. Did you leave on purpose, Joe?
No, my browser crashed.
Okay. So like, I knew that Peter was killed by the art at the end, but I never made that connection at the beginning. It was the same thing. This movie is split into two. The first half is pretty much straightforward, all of Cristiano's kills, and the second half is all Peter's kills. And the way that structure is so cool to me. I do believe that overall it is about the dual nature things. Does art inspire violence? Sometimes. Sometimes art quells violence, right? Sometimes we can be inspired by something to do something heinous or to do something positive, something uplifting. And how we respond to art, that's up to us. Because I was touching on this a little bit last night because I got way drunk on the Rockin' Robbie live stream, and we started talking about Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling for some fucking reason. And when I feel like when somebody's made a piece of art, it's now out there, and when I like Tenebrae is mine, I'm going to take whatever I want out of it, regardless of the intention of Argento or anybody else, right? That art is now mine. What I choose to do with that art is my responsibility, right? Like how I choose to allow that art to influence my life in a positive, uplifting way or a negative, heinous way. And it also is showing the hypocrisy of society acting like certain behavior is abhorrent or deviant or anything like that. And Argento is making some statements. And I think, like Joe said, this movie's making more statements than it gets credit for. And I think it's rather brilliant for that. So now let's get into the rating. You out there in the chat, if you've watched Dario Argento's Tenebrae, out of 5 possible you digs, what do you give it? And Jelani, kick us off.
All right. Well, I love this movie. It is one of my favorite Argento films. I guess I need to watch the Argento cut of was it Dawn of the Dead for me to like make a full synopsis.
Spoilers. Horror Fest 2023. Dario Argento's cut of Dawn of the Dead is coming, baby. Zombie.
Slap. So I'm gonna give this one, and it's rewatchable as hell. I'll watch it twice this time, and I guess since I thought I was just gonna be like you guys watch it 2 times, but you guys are watching 4 times, so it is what it is. But I love it. It's great. It's a well-paced film. The music slaps. There's women's. There's a crazy ass dog. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. It's one of the greatest horror films I could ever like tell people to watch. But I'm still gonna give it like a 4 or 5 because it ain't Suspiria. That's it. I love this movie. Yeah. I absolutely love it. I would give it a 5, but Suspiria exists, so I can't really, with good conscience, do that. So 4 or 5 for me, just for that.
Fair enough. What about you, Brian? What do you give it?
Yeah, I give it a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I loved it all the way through. Yeah, Jelani, that's a good point. I do love Suspiria more. It's just there's some that I love more than this, but I didn't I don't buy movies much anymore, but I went ahead and just bought this one because I've loved the other ones that I've seen and everything, and I don't regret that purchase at all. Like I know I'm going to watch it, later on and everything. So yeah, it's yeah, I don't know, absolutely loved it, but I don't know why I can't give it a perfect score, but I mean 4.5 is pretty good.
4.5 is fair enough. And the DVD or the 4K is definitely worth it because it's got that 1.5 hour long documentary, Yellow Fever, The Rise and Fall of Giallo.
That was fantastic because
really
it also
good.
had Richard Stanley on it. I'll watch anything with Richard Stanley talking.
There you go. All right, Verno, what about you, man? What do you rate Tenebrae?
If we're on DHS, if I'm being honest, I'd go 4.25, but we're not. So I'll go a 4.5, man. I struggle, and I know you guys will give me shit, but I see the brilliance. I get it, but there are glaring weaknesses in all these Italian films. Like I could never give any of them a 5, and I struggle to give them a 4.5. Then again, I've only been watching them for a year. If I've been watching them for 20 years and they were part of my life, that might be different. But when you have characters that are just like Daria Nicoletti, there's no point to her character. There's not relationships between the characters. You're not sure why they're doing what they're doing. Like, it's not a perfect movie. It's like a big part of being a film, especially something that should be like a whodunit. The plot should be super fucking important. You know what I mean? To be that loose with a plot in a whodunit, like you have to dig at something for that. So I'll go 4.5.
All right, respectable. What about you, Brooks?
I give it a 3.5. It's above average. I think the soundtrack and the final and the ending are like the best parts of the movie. but like I thought a lot of it was not boring per se, but like uninteresting to me. I may change my mind like on further watching, but like just this time I watched it, I just like I love what it builds up to, but like the build up to it is just not, getting me.
I get it.
I love how tickled Joe gets. All right, Joe, what about you? What do you give Tenebrae?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as most of you. Like, I'm going for a 5. I can't give it a 5 because Suspiria exists, and there are a few, you know, like Verna was saying, like glaring, like sort of like either. I don't know if I'd call them like, you know, they're not plot holes, but they're, you know, contrivances. They're very like, you know, we need this to happen because it has to, the reveal has to be so shocking. There's just no logical way to have that happen. So I'm like, all right, you know, it's so it's not perfect, but you know, definitely, you know, crazy enjoyable, easy to recommend to people who, especially if they're not that familiar with Italian horror films. I think this is an easier one to recommend people. I think this is this might be an easier entry point for certain people than like Suspiria, for Argento, even, of just like, yeah, check this weird shit out. And you know, so and super rewatchable. You know, I could with no problem at all after getting off this watch it again.
I think I might. I don't know.
I might. It's a really easy watch. Like it's for as violent and graphic as it gets. It's a really easy watch.
Yeah,
I can watch it.
That's good.
Breakfast, eating scrambled eggs, and
no problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Throw it on anytime, man. That's Dylan's favorite thing to say. It's like, I throw this on anytime. And usually I'm like, really? Anytime?
Cannibal Holocaust, anytime.
Anytime you can watch Cannibal Holocaust pieces anytime. Like, probably not, but all right. I get everything that everybody's saying here. Dylan, I want to know what your rating is, bro. I got your bros rating. We got Two Guns rating. Evan gives it a 4. Two Gun gives it a 4.5. First time watching for Two Gun. Hell yeah. I'm glad you liked it. I get what you guys are saying. It's not as good as Suspiria. It's got some problems with how convenient the story can be sometimes. It's got some issues here and there, but you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm giving it a 5, man. I'm giving it a 5. I don't give a shit about any of its flaws. This movie supersedes its flaws. It is perfect even through its imperfection for me. I love this movie. I literally can pull a Dylan and watch it. I watched this movie 4 fucking times this week. I don't have time to be watching movies 4 times in 1 week. I've made time to watch Tenebrae 4 times this week, y'all, to get ready for this show. I was so damned excited. And if you don't believe I was, look back at the beginning of this show and just come on. Yeah, I was like going off. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to go for 30 minutes if I'm not careful. I love this fucking film. So 4.5 from everybody else on the panel, but Brooks, who gave it a 3.5, and me, who gave it a 5 to help balance that out for a PCP average of 4.4169. Dude, it works, man. It almost works. It's almost perfect.
I was just kidding, Dylan. But
look, Dylan's like, I didn't say that. No shit, man. We were joking.
I thought it was a good example.
That was like I was giving high praise to Lovesick on a weekly review recently, and I was like, I felt like I had to let people know, like, I don't think cannibalism's sexy, except for in this one book or whatever. But Dylan gives it a 4 out of 5. And Scarpad says 3. I guess is that a 3.7 or 37? Scarpad, you're high, man. Go back to bed, old man. Anyway, so that's a PCP average of 4.4169. There's only certain. I mean, look at Dylan. Is like really like He's like, really? No, bro, I can't rewatch Cannibal Holocaust. No, we get it, Dylan. We get it, Dylan. Speaking of Dylan, March Madness is not over. We're just getting started, and the Italian horror does not stop, because Saturday night on Dylan's Horror Show at 6:30 p.m. or let's be honest, 6:45 p.m. Central Time on Saturday night. We're talking about The Black Cat from Lucio Fulci, y'all. More Italian horror and an American film, but heavily inspired by Giallo. Next week here on PCP Movie Night for March Madness, Dressed to Kill, starring Michael Caine, directed by Brian De Palma. Very excited to dive into that movie. I bought the Criterion months ago, and I've been eagerly awaiting diving into it. It is heavily influenced by the work of Dario Argento. If you're not familiar with it, it tackles some interesting subjects. We're going to have an interesting conversation next week, and we got a loaded show, a loaded panel for next week. Scarpad will be here. Steph will be here, as well as Jelani and Brooks, and even Mike the Voice Matthews. Interesting pick, Mike. All right, anyway, Dressed to Kill next week here on PCP Movie Night, and then The Black Cat from Lucio Fulci is coming up, and Verno is going to look up if those are available to stream anywhere, as I tell Delaney to give us final thoughts.
I already think I looked it up. Not good.
Oh, man. Wow. I need to watch it. I've never heard of Dress to Kill. But, yeah, glad to be here. Tenebrae was freaking awesome. Robbie is hopefully going to be with us on 2 of our videos at Go Figure Reviews. The little show Brooks and I do. For Taoists and stuff. We're going to do a Masterverse Sunman, and we're also the Too Bad figures. Hopefully you guys are still watching us. We're going to have a live stream next month. Hopefully we'll have some other people on it talking about some things, doing some stuff. Please check us out at Go Figure Reviews. And that's all I got for you.
Nice. What about you, Brian? Thank you for being here. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, glad to be here, and yeah, I'm really digging this these Argento films, and really excited to actually watch some more. So yeah, yeah, I guess on Sunday at noon Central, we're going to be talking to Rom V.
That's right.
So.
Nice.
The Rom V, Rom 5, Rom the 5th.
Yeah, excited about that one though.
Yeah, don't forget the time change, Brian. I got to remind Rom about that too. I actually got to get that set up. So anyway, yeah, Rom V next this upcoming Sunday at noon here on PCP. It's going to be a great, fun conversation. Awesome. What about you, Verno? Final thoughts? Thank you for being here, by the way. Love having you on the show, man.
Hells yeah, dude. I love doing this. Unfortunately, Black Cat doesn't look to be streaming anywhere, but you could rent it on Amazon. And you could probably pirate it somewhere if you have to, but don't do that unless you have to.
Or you could all just actually buy the physical media.
I'm looking at it right now, $29.99, but I didn't even want to say anything because there's only one left in stock. So get it while you can. I'm probably not going to buy it.
Fight
not
for it.
Blood Splatter Chatter on Instagram, talking horror, posting horror stuff, setting up some fun stuff coming up in the future. So check it out.
And Two Gun Pedro says Dressed to Kill is on Tubi and Pluto TV, so you can watch it interrupted with commercials if you want to there. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest with you. Brooks, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
Tenebrae, a great action thriller with a lot of laughs.
Tenebrae, a great... Dude, you did the Yogi Bear fucking movie corner. That's awesome, man. I like that. Thank you, man. That comes from a bit that we saw on Tom Scioli's YouTube channel, Total Recall Show. And does not Brooks kind of look like, does he not have that Tom Scioli kind of vibe?
He does have that Tom Scioli vibe.
Yeah. Come on. Let's be honest. By the way, Tom Scioli is about to do a Stan Lee biography in comic book form. That's going to make him a lot of money.
Oh, he did the Kirby one, right?
Did the Kirby one. Now he's doing Stan Lee. And I hope that he didn't hold too much back. Anyway, Joe, thank you for being here. Final thoughts. I know you got Cherish out this week.
Yeah, Cherish this week. It's the finale for now. So I'm excited for people to check that out.
By the way, that cover A, incredibly sexy as hell.
Yeah. Or is Cherish. This because which issue is it, the 5th issue that's out, or is it the okay. I was gonna say, because I was doing the math in my I'm like, wait a minute. Yes, no, it is the but yeah, no, that A cover, I actually, the way that happened is I ran into Stuart Sager at Baltimore Comic-Con, and we were talking, and then we started emailing after the show, and I was just like, I love your stuff, man. You want to do a Cherish cover? He's like, yeah. So
hell yeah,
so that was good.
Great
I love that cover. He really did a good job with it.
It inspired some thirst in me this afternoon when I saw it, when I was looking at what's coming out this week. So yeah.
So that's good. And then I think next week's the next Dahlia, or it's the week after, but it's nice. Dahlia in the Dark issue 4 is out this month, and next week as well is the release of the Carmen line, a graphic novel I edited for Mad Cave Studios, a sci-fi thriller by Dennis Hopeless and Peter Kowalski.
Nice. Ooh, that's a great creative team, man.
Yeah, no, it was really good. It was a lot of fun putting that book together. It's I really hope people check it out. I'm excited to get comp copies, because when you work on a graphic novel, it takes a long time before it's out. So it's like, I've been working on this thing for like over a year. I want to hold it already. I
want it. God damn it! Yeah. I just want to say real quick that you have been killing it on Dahlia in the Dark. I'm loving that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite Mad Cave book right now, for sure. And it's not just because we're homies. It's because I'm genuinely saying that. So there you go.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Don't forget, Saturday, Dylan's Horror Show, The Black Cat by Lucio Fulci. Next week on PCP Movie Night, March Madness continues with Dressed to Kill. Very excited to unpack these movies. On behalf of everybody here at PCP, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. And we will continue looking at the insanity of cinema all throughout March Madness, every Saturday and Sunday throughout March, because basketball's cool, but horror movies are better. Let's get into it, y'all. Station, pop, pop, boom.